All right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit more about Bitcoin. There's two important topics I wanted to bring up today. And the first one is Shark Tank star changes tune on Bitcoin, will allocate 3% of his portfolio to Bitcoin. And they're referring to Kevin O'Leary. So the reason I wanted, again, 3% of his portfolio, it's not going to be a significant amount. I don't know exactly how much he's worth, but that may not even be in the millions of dollars. Again, like I said, I don't know how much he's worth. Obviously, for that to be in the millions of dollars, that would have to be at least like what, 30 million roughly. So maybe. Um, I know he's fairly wealthy, but he's not like filthy rich like an Elon Musk type. Um, but nonetheless, you see more and more of this kind of stuff. And again, this is someone who was skeptical of Bitcoin for the longest time. And this is something, like I say, you're seeing all the time. Like you've seen it with motleyfool, just did it recently. They're a popular like investment and stock trading, all that kind of, personal finance kind of website. Obviously, they're doing pretty good for themselves if they can put 5 million into it. So again, and they were another group of their two guys. They were skeptical of Bitcoin up until very recently as well. So this is something that people don't seem to realize is that a lot of people don't seem to realize. I think a lot of people do, but a lot of the normies don't realize is that they think that these people that are putting money into Bitcoin, they're people that have been doing it for the longest time, or they're people that have liked Bitcoin. But what they're not realizing is that a lot of these people um, are people that haven't been big fans of Bitcoin for the longest time, and they're waking up to the reality behind it. And the reality is that the dollar is a ticking time bomb. Governments are massively inflating their currencies. Um, and not only that, there's a lot of other aspects that go into it as well. But again, the simple point remains is that if the government continues to inflate their currencies, whether it's Canada, the US, wherever, Bitcoin is going to appreciate in value. Now, again, the one thing when it comes to Bitcoin is that it is pretty volatile, which turns off a lot of people. But what the average person doesn't understand is that number one, volatile doesn't necessarily mean risky, right? This is a thing that people get wrong all the time, and when it comes to investing, is that they correlate volatile with risky, which a lot of the times is the case, but not always, right? A lot of the times, not always. Um, so yeah, that's another point to bring up when it comes to Bitcoin. But the other big point I wanted to bring up when it came, I mean, the first one obviously being is that the institutional investors are just pouring into this stuff too. It's only a matter of time until another big name company puts money in it. You already have MicroStrategy's the biggest one. You have Tesla with, I think they got about 1.5, 2 billion. You have Square, you have, those are just, again, off the top of my head. Not to mention, too, you have a lot of billionaires. You got the Winklevoss twins. You got a bunch of these kind of people that I think there's a senator or two that have Bitcoin. Um, Again, just going off the top of my head, the list of people. And again, personally, the biggest argument against Bitcoin, I think, at this moment is I think there's two big issues. One of them I don't think is that big of an issue. The first one being at this point it's not necessarily viable to buy very small transaction like buy a coffee with Bitcoin. It's not really viable to do that at the moment. I know they're working on technologies to make that viable. The other one is the government banning Bitcoin. But again, number one, the government can't ban Bitcoin. That would be like the government saying we're going to ban the internet, right? They can't really do that. All they could do is regulate it. Um, the problem with that too is that would obviously have unintended consequences, and that if you look at some of the countries that have banned it, the demand for Bitcoin in those countries has only gone up. So basically, all the government can do is just close the on and off ramps, right? But that only prevents people from getting it to such a degree, right? Like you can still get it, right? So that's another big problem. Again, the whole banning thing, um, the more it goes up and the more time that goes by, the less likely that is to happen. So to me, that's not a huge concern. To me, one of the big concerns would be a superior crypto coming along and surpassing Bitcoin. To me, that would be the biggest concern. There definitely is ones that are technologically superior. Again, the problem is probably going to be anyone can come. Well, I mean, not anyone, but I'm sure it would be very easy for some skilled professionals to come up with a better version of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of these social media platforms. The problem is that these other ones already have such a big user base that even if it is better, the chances of you surpassing it are very unlikely, right? So again, that's the first thing I wanted to bring up. The second thing is I was watching a video yesterday of a guy who he actually has a prepper channel, but he's kind of branching out into some other stuff lately. I think kind of as he's gotten more popular, he wants to kind of branch out, I guess, apparently. But again, they were talking about Bitcoin. Um, and one of the things he brought up is, oh, well, one of the problems with Bitcoin is that it's rich people getting rich off of it, right? Or it's people that bought in when it was, $1, $10, $100, whatever, that have made massive. They've made 1,000%, 10,000, 100,000% returns, and that's unfair, right? That's not fair to the poor. Which again, I understand that argument, but again, where these people go completely wrong is if you actually cared about the poor, you would be telling them to buy Bitcoin, or at the very least, you would be You would entertain the concept of a currency that actually holds value or gains value, right? Part of the reason why life is so unaffordable these days is that the currency continues to lose value over and over, like what, 2, 3, 4, 5% a year, right? But yet median wages haven't gone up in over 20 years now, I think. And like I said, the currency is constantly losing value, and the cost of living is constantly going up. So the whole point being is that if you really wanted to help the poor, you would love a currency that holds value or even preferably gains value over time, right? Because 15 bucks an hour will become, 15.50 the next year and 16 the next year and so on and so forth, right? Rather than, 15 bucks an hour this year, next year it's 14.50, next year it's 14, like obviously not exactly, but so on and so forth. So the point is very simple. For the people that claim to care about the poor, if you're defending the current system and criticizing Bitcoin or even the concept of, you're absolutely and utterly insane. Again, you have either absolutely no idea what you're talking about, which is most of these people, right? Or you really hate the poor, right? And this is part of the reason why I bring this stuff all the time is that Bitcoin is a transfer of wealth on average from the rich to the poor and the middle class. Like, find me one person. I mean, there probably is some, but if you look at these people that bought Bitcoin and hodled the whole time, bought it at $1, $10, $100, almost every one of those people I've seen has been someone who's, lower to middle class. I don't know anyone who was a millionaire at the time and bought Bitcoin when it was really cheap. I don't know any of those. I've never seen one example of that. Now again, they're going to say, "Oh, Tesla bought all this Bitcoin and it's going to 10x or whatever." That's not fair. Well, again, it's a good investment, right? And this is the other thing too, that anyone can buy it, right? Anyone can buy it. This is the other thing too, is that You have all these leftist types that constantly complain about discrimination. Well, okay, again, Bitcoin doesn't discriminate. Anyone can open, anyone can download these apps and start buying it. Anyone can hold it. They don't care about what color your skin is or your gender or any of that stuff. So the point being is very simple. The other point I wanted to bring up too is that if the socialists actually cared about the poor, they would love Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, assuming it continues to trend in the direction it's been trending, is like the greatest. It would be the greatest thing that they could possibly come up with, because it is a way of sticking it to the rich. Because again, who stands to lose most from Bitcoin going up? It's the banks, right? It's the banks, right? Because every dollar that goes into Bitcoin is money that doesn't end up in the hands of a bank or a corporation, right? Because when someone decides, I want to invest some money, well, how are they going to, what are the traditional ways? You can, okay, well, you can put it into bonds, which is, again, enabling the government and corporations. You can put it into stocks, which is giving it to big corporations. You can put it into a savings account, which is giving it to the banks. Or you could put it into crypto, right? So again, if you really cared about the gap between the rich and the poor and sticking it to the rich and all this kind of stuff, that you would love Bitcoin. Now, why is it that they don't like Bitcoin? They don't like Bitcoin because, number one, at the end of the day, they don't actually care about the poor. What they care most about is power. And to get and to maintain said power, they need the fiat money system, because the fiat money system is what gets and keeps these governments elected. And obviously, again, people should know what I mean by when I'm talking about that. But what I mean by that, for anyone that doesn't, is how do these left-wing, especially further left-wing governments get elected? Well, they promise people free stuff. We're going to give you free healthcare. If you already have free healthcare, we're going to give you more free healthcare. And how they do that is, number one, increasing taxes, or number two, printing money. Lately, it's been more printing money. So again, they need the fiat money system to gain said power. This is the fundamental reason why the socialists don't like Bitcoin, right? And I think there's other ways as well. Like, if the government wasn't able to print unlimited amounts of money, like the Iraq War probably wouldn't have been viable, right? So this is something that would hurt right-wing governments. At the time, it was a right-wing government. Nowadays, it's more the lefties that are big on war, but at least in the States. But again, this is the other point too. Like, for all the people that were against the Iraq War, which is most people, like, again, like, it just shows just how little integrity the average person has. It shows just how little people actually care about their values. It shows just how little people actually practice and preach their values. But again, they'll rail all day about, oh, the Iraq War was the worst thing ever and it got a ton of people killed, which is true, and it is a terrible thing. But if you're actually offered up a solution so something like that never happens again, they don't support it. And it's very simple, because people have been brainwashed into thinking that the fiat money system is the greatest thing ever, and it's sustainable, and it's so we can help the poor and all this garbage, right? And again, like, it's something too that really bothers me, that you see these people that have very large audiences and they clearly have no idea what they're talking about. Because again, like, I'm no expert on crypto, right? I'm no expert. So when I hear someone talking and I notice instantly that my intellect on this stuff is significantly higher than them, again, I immediately assume, okay, this person has no idea what they're talking about. Because if they did, then you can, with most of this stuff, you can tell immediately the way people are talking and the points they're bringing up to whether they know what they're talking about. Again, when it comes to Bitcoin and people's argument is, oh, Bitcoin, it uses too much electricity and the government's going to ban it. And I don't trust that Satoshi guy. right? These are some of the arguments you hear. Again, they're all easily debunkable. I mean, mining for gold is far more environmentally, not dangerous, but unenvironmentally friendly than mining for Bitcoin. And not to mention, too, like I said, if the government wasn't able to print, if the government was on a system comparable to Bitcoin, the Iraq War wouldn't have been viable. So again, would you prefer the amount of electricity that was used, or would you prefer the, what was it, like 1 million people that were killed because of the Iraq War? Right? It should be a very simple example. A little bit of electricity or save those 1 million lives. Right? The people that claim, oh, we care about saving lives, right? It's funny how little they actually care about saving lives when it comes right down to it. It only seems to be they care about saving lives when it's the most fringe, tiny percent of people that they can save as possible, right? The 1 million people here, 1 million people there, right? That were killed by communism. Oh, well, they could care less about those lives, but the less than 1% of Canadians that were killed from the you know what, oh, we gotta destroy our society over that, right? Like the amount of hypocrisy and cognitive dissonance of these people really knows no bounds. So again, at the end of the day, when it comes to Bitcoin, the socialists should love Bitcoin, and the fact that they don't just shows just how ungenuine they are. Again, it's pretty simple, I believe. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. If you want to donate, you could do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But like I said, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.